Okay, so let's dive into this. Today we are immersing ourselves in the extremely exclusive, profoundly eccentric, and frankly catastrophic world of an elite classics study group.
At Hampton College, Vermont. And this deep dive, it really analyzes the formation, the philosophy, and I guess the eventual moral collapse of this very secretive group.
All seen through the eyes of our narrator, Richard Papen.
Yeah, Richard's perspective is just crucial here because he starts as the complete outsider. He's fleeing, really.
Fleeing what exactly?
Well, he wasn't just drawn to Hampton for the dusty books. He was running from this palpable despair back home in California, a place he called Piano.
Right, I remember that description. He talked about wandering through shopping malls until everything just became unintelligible.
Exactly. Like a babble of detached molecules is quite a haunting image. He needed structure, something solid.
And that yearning, that search for intellectual structure and maybe silence, that's what drove him east, wasn't it? After a fight about money or school.
Yeah, seeking the austere Anglican cadence he imagined Hampton offered, a stark contrast to California.
And he knew how to get what he wanted, even then.
Oh, absolutely. Vital to him getting into this, like, hyper-exclusive group is how he saw himself. He knew his skills.
What did he say? Something about lying.
He said, if there's one thing I'm good at, it's lying on my feet. It's sort of a gift I have.
Wow. Okay, so that ability to perform, to kind of become whoever he needed to be.
That's the key. It's the single skill that lets him into this world that honestly should have just spat him out.
Which brings us straight to the center of it all. Julian Morrow, the ancient Greek teacher. He's like the gravitational pull for this whole setup.
Definitely. The sources paint him less as a professor and more like, well, an artistic director for people's lives. And the rumors around him were wild, contradictory.
He was a real gatekeeper, wasn't he?
100%. We hear he's very particular, chooses students based on, like, personal connection, not just grades.
Personal rather than academic basis.
Yeah.
And only a tiny number get in.
Right, a very limited number. And the rumors just fed into this mystique. Was he brilliant? A total fraud?
Friends with Pound and Elliot.
Yeah.
Ties to the Vatican. Or
Oh,
maybe some, deposed royals.
exactly. All these contradictions just elevate him beyond being some guy teaching Greek.
And it's that mystique, that feeling of secret, restricted knowledge that Richard grabs onto. It's his escape route.
Mm-hmm. And before he gets in, he observes the core group, right? The 5 students already orbiting Julian, he calls them an arresting party.
Arresting's a good word. They seem almost curated.
They really do. Carefully chosen to project
Yeah.
this rarefied air. Take Henry Winter. He's the anchor, really.
The big guy, dark suits, the
Well,
umbrella.
the umbrella in rural Vermont, which is just bizarre. And he's presented as this almost inhuman intellect.
A linguistic genius. Published a translation with commentary at, what, 18?
18, yeah, Anacreon. But, like, the sources show how performed that whole identity is.
Right, because Richard finds out later he's actually from Missouri.
Yeah. The show me state. Not exactly ancient Greece. And he got all that knowledge basically by teaching himself.
While stuck in bed after a really bad car accident as a kid.
Exactly. And crucially, the family money. It's new money. So Henry's kind of fabricating this whole persona of old world stability
Then there's Francis Abernathy.
from old Boston money, supposedly. Adds another layer of East Coast elite.
And the twins, Charles and Camilla, there's something intense about them.
Definitely intense, shared bond, those hoarse, slightly southern accents, very distinctive.
And then the opposite end of the spectrum almost.
Yeah.
Edmund Bunny Corcoran.
Oh, Bunny, the disruptive element, that nasal, garrulous voice.
Like W.C. Fields with a bad case of Long Island lockjaw. That's quite the description. Always playing Sousa marches loudly.
Yeah, projecting this image of privilege and not caring. But the irony.
The irony is deep.
His family is actually bankrupt. The fancy schools were just a weird way of outsourcing parenting, leaving him to fend for himself.
And to sponge, which becomes a huge issue later.
A massive issue. That reliance on appearances and borrowed cash is like a ticking time bomb inside their perfect little bubble.
So Richard finally gets his audience with Julian, the big interview.
And Julian figures him out immediately, right? Sees he's this romantic type from California, which should be a deal breaker.
But Richard's performance.
It's flawless. Julian asks why someone like him wants the classics, and Richard just nails it.
What does he say?
That romantics are often the best classicists. It's brilliant because he's basically reflecting Julian's own romanticism back at him.
He's playing the game. recognizing Julian wants to treat antiquity as this emotional, aesthetic thing.
Exactly. Julian's hooked. He pulls everything he needs out of Richard, and Richard, the performer, gets his golden ticket.
Okay, so he's in. And the classroom becomes, well, the crucible, the place where things start to unravel intellectually.
It really does. Julian's described as a marvelous talker, and what he talks about is heavy stuff.
Plato's divine madness is losing yourself completely.
And the core problem for all these sheltered smart kids, the burden of the self, that thing that always reminds you you're going to die.
And Julian's main argument, the philosophy he pushes, is the real trap, isn't it?
It is. He argues that civilized people, like the ancients and ourselves, we engage in this willful repression of the old animal self.
But he says trying to murder that primitive self is a mistake.
Exactly. And that repression isn't just about, table manners or studying hard. It's about separating the clean intellectual world from messy, violent reality.
That detachment, that aesthetic view of everything.
That's what lets them justify crossing basically every moral line imaginable. It leads them right to intellectualizing violence.
And Henry, the supposed genius, makes that chilling connection in class.
He does. He declares death is the mother of beauty, just like that.
And Julian doesn't flinch. He pushes him. And what is beauty?
Henry's reply is just, bam, terror. Simple, terrifying.
And Julian validates it. Genuine beauty is always quite alarming. They're literally theorizing murder as an aesthetic choice, a path to something higher.
Which explains why they'd even attempt something like the Dionysiac experiment. The appeal is that mystery, right? Achieving religious ecstasy.
To lose oneself, lose it utterly.
And in doing so, be born to the principle of continuous life, escaping mortality and time. It was meant as a triumph of barbarism over reason.
And it works. Violently.
Yeah. Henry confirms it to Richard later. Richard asks kind of cautiously, "You saw Dionysus, I suppose?"
And Henry's response?
Dead serious. God is serious business. The proof is physical, too. Charles has this bloody bite mark.
Too big to be human.
Right. And Camilla apparently thought she was a deer during the whole thing. The theory became savage reality.
But that success.
Yeah.
It immediately created a huge, horrible problem.
A terrible reckoning. That high-minded aesthetic pursuit ended with him accidentally killing a local farmer during the ritual.
So now the problem isn't ecstasy, it's body disposal, turning a killing into something manageable.
Their first plan was simple enough. Just leave the body, make it look like a hiking accident.
But then something unexpected happened. Logistics.
Yeah, the weather. Heavy snow fell that night. It covered the body completely.
And when the search parties came through, they packed the snow down over him like ice.
Making it impossible to find him initially, and making the eventual discovery look incredibly suspicious. It ruined their simple lie.
Still, the secret might have held, if it weren't for Bunny.
Bunny, he figures it out, and he's not like a master manipulator. He's just a nuisance, a continuous threat.
He starts basically blackmailing them.
Well, Henry has this analysis, right? He says Bunny doesn't even see it as blackmail. For Bunny, it's just more sponging, continuing what he's always done.
But the sponging gets extreme, and it shows how Henry's changing.
Definitely. From intellectual to, well, something colder.
Yeah.
He takes Bunny to Rome.
Buys tickets via Rome to Buenos Aires just to get Bunny under obligation.
And sinks almost all his savings, like $30,000 into it. Suddenly, the wealth Henry pretended not to care about is a weapon to control someone.
But the trip's a disaster.
A total collapse. Henry gets one of his crippling migraines. He's trapped in the hotel room, taping newspaper over the windows, can't get medicine, can't get ice.
A complete loss of his usual control.
And in that moment, he just snaps. Abandons Bunny, leaves him a ticket home and $2,000 cash.
So Bunny comes back, obviously furious, and starts making threats in public.
Yeah, like at Connins, pointing at the newspaper article about the farmer's disappearance, saying to Henry, basically, if I didn't know better, I'd think you did this.
Henry realizes the danger then. Bunny's not malicious, he's just a fool.
Exactly. A fool who will say the wrong thing to the wrong person and blow everything up just out of sheer stupidity.
And so, the second plot is hatched, conscious murder this time.
They plan to ambush Bunny at the ravine. And Henry's rationale is just bone-chilling.
She says it couldn't be safer.
Because nobody knows they have any reason to kill him. It's pure intellectual arrogance, thinking their cleverness makes them immune because the motive is hidden inside the group.
And Richard has this awful realization about his own part in it.
Devastating. He realizes he was Henry's unwitting alarm bell. Bunny came to him first, confused and drunk.
And by telling Henry, Richard basically delivered Bunny into his hands.
And that lofty philosophical quest ends with Henry killing Bunny with a garden trowel.
Just a common garden tool.
Yeah.
The contrast between the high ideals and the grubby reality is just stark.
After the murder, Henry goes into full organizational mode, orchestrates the cover-up.
The alibi about watching bad movies.
Right. And when the investigation starts, outside prejudice actually helps them.
You mean the mechanic, William Hundy.
Yeah. He comes forward, says he saw Bunny with 3 men, but then describes them as out-of-towners, dark Arabs.
And just like that, the police focus shifts away from the wealthy college kids. Bias becomes a tool for them.
But the real betrayal, the intellectual one, comes from Julian.
He gets that fake letter, right? The forgery from Edmund.
Yeah, a clumsy attempt to shift blame. Richard recognizes it was typed on the library typewriter anyone could use. Julian knows it's fake. He knows they did it.
And his reaction?
He just runs, doesn't confront them, doesn't call the police, doesn't offer any guidance based on his supposed wisdom.
He vanishes from Hampton, leaves his office totally empty. Books, rugs, everything gone.
It shows his whole philosophy was just a game, an ascetic exercise. When faced with real, messy human violence, the consequences of his own teachings, he crumbles.
The metaphor used is brutal. He's like someone who picks all his favorite chocolates out of the box and leaves the rest.
Cold, utterly cold, and it devastates Henry. He tells Richard, "I loved him more than anyone in the world." Julian's abandonment proves the whole classical ideal was hollow for him.
So Henry, abandoned by his mentor, plans the final act of control.
A very cold, calculated control. Collective suicide. He starts researching mushroom toxicology.
Amanita phalloides, the death cap.
And works out mathematical formulas for the dosage. Even experiments on a neighbor's dog.
And Richard, completely unaware, helps him with the math.
An unwitting accomplice right to the very end, calculating mass death without knowing it.
The group just completely falls apart then. Charles is deep in alcoholism paranoia.
Yeah, seeing Bunny's ghost, convinced creatures from space are after him, he's unraveling.
And it's Charles who shoots Henry.
During a confrontation, uses Francis's aunt's Beretta, shoots Henry twice in the head.
But Henry doesn't die immediately.
No, astonishingly, he lives for 12 hours. A feat that apparently amazed the doctors, one last act of willpower, maybe.
And the survivors? What happens to them? Richard confesses his love to Camilla.
Right after Henry's funeral. But she turns him down. Says the group's weird bond is stronger than death itself. I can't marry you because I love Henry.
Wow. Even after everything.
Even after everything. And the others, they just slot back into privileged lives. Francis marries, gets a fancy apartment in New York.
And the most unbelievable part, Cloak Rayburn, the drug dealer.
Yeah. He somehow goes to law school, ends up an associate at Millbank Tweed, maybe even hired by Bunny's brother Hugh. The system just absorbs the mess and moves on.
The deep dive ends with Richard reflecting and then seeing Henry's ghost.
Yeah, like Henry's standing right there with him, watching a slideshow of ancient ruins. Richard says, everyone thinks you're dead.
And Henry's final line, the eternal performer.
I'm not dead. I'm only having a bit of trouble with my passport. Like, death itself is just a bureaucratic inconvenience he can outsmart.
So that's the arc. From this romantic idea of academic exclusivity all the way down to moral ruin and human collapse.
All fueled by this intoxicating idea of transcendence, of aesthetic detachment from consequences. And you see the survivors just returning to these superficial lives, suggesting their profound knowledge was, in the end, just catastrophically self-serving.
Their ability to intellectualize everything, even violence, gave them this terrifying sense of freedom.
Of freedom from earthly consequence, yeah.
So for you, the learner, listening to this, here's something to think about. Building on Julian's ideas. When you're seeking knowledge, diving deep into something, how do you tell the difference?
Yeah, how do you distinguish between information that genuinely illuminates and information that just gives you this false sense of control over, the burden of the self?
What are those subtle clues that maybe an intellectual pursuit has tipped over into a dangerous kind of self-delusion, like that chilling image of Henry?
Calculating precise mathematical formulas for deadly poison. When does knowledge become the justification instead of the goal?